Well, here we are, Michael, on a Saturday, the 29th of January, 2022, to sit down to do another session on Michael's script that he has labored to produce. And I think this is going to be a really great session, Michael. I just really am looking forward to talking with you about what you have put together for us on the biblical aspects of conspiracy. Welcome, Michael.
My dear Brett, and hello, dear listeners. Yes, this is a series. We are today in the session 4, by the way, already. So this is session 4 of a series I started in German. Actually, I did not know from the beginning if it would be a great feat to do it in English as well, but as I have discovered, as there are many American items in the term of conspiracy, which is of course related to the Bible, then I thought it would be a great idea to team up with you again. So Science is the New Religion has not finished yet because I'm doing it parallel. I'm doing it at the same time, but I have to do much research, and it's more easy for me to continue with Brett on the subject which I have already made a script for, of course, so that you don't have any pause that you have to wait for. This is session 4 about the biblical conspiracies compared to the worldly view. And I think that Brett has discovered that there is much to it, especially when you go into the Bible, which we will do today very extensively. Well, because the problem of the politics today is that people were not following the commandment of God. So even the so-called Israelites, or the chosen people, if you would like to have it that way, these chosen people, they demanded to be ruled like every other pagan nation. And so that we discovered here in the 1 Samuel 8 in the King James Bible. And to make it a little bit more convenient to read and to talk about it, I've inserted on that behalf here the Blaney version, so not the original 1611 version, but the little bit more newer Blaney version, so that it's much more suitable for the average English American speaking people at the moment. So Israel demands a king. In my humble opinion, this is the cause of all the trouble which came from the politics. So this the people who were apostate, who didn't want to obey God's commandments as easy as they are, or as short as they are, but then in totally contrast to follow the orders and the laws of men, fallen men, fallible men. So that's it. That's the problem here I see, because this study will not only take much content out of the Bible, but will also use much content of the world today and politics and history, and also, of course, very famous example of American policy when it comes down to president and its conspiracy. And you can guess which one I think of. So this is the first thing, which is in the beginning of the session here, that we have the biblical foundation where it all is about. This is Israel demands a king, 1 Samuel 8.
This is a really great chapter, and this was a chapter that Jörg Lissman read some years ago, and I made a video of it. And it was really a fun video, for the sense that, you know, we could put together the true biblical picture of our true history as a nation, that is Israel, the nation that is no longer a part of this world, but is a part of God's new spiritual you know, his spiritual work inside of us. Let's think about that. So yeah, Michael, if you want, I'll read the whole chapter. Let's do it. And it came to pass, when Samuel was old, that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the first name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah. And they were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes, and perverted judgment. And all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together, and came unto Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them, according to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me, and have served other gods. So do they also unto thee. Now therefore hearken unto their voice, howbeit yet protest solemnly unto them, and show unto them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. And he said, This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself for his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and some shall run before his chariots, and he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground and to reap his harvest and to make his instruments of war and instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries and to be cooks and to be bakers. And he will take your fields and your vineyards and your olive yards and the best of them and give them to his servants. And he will take 1/10 of your seed and of your vineyards, and give his officers and to his servants. And he will take your men servants and your maid servants and your godliest young men and your asses, and put them to his work. He will take 1/10 of your sheep, and ye shall be his servants, and ye shall cry out in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear your voice in that day. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, Nay, but we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. And Samuel heard all the words of the people and rehearsed them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto their voice, and make them a king. And Samuel said unto the men of Israel, Go ye, every man unto his city.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brad. This is a very prominent chapter of the Bible, which I think is not very common among people who are looking for salvation, but it is very interesting to go in it when you look upon the conspiracies, when you look upon how the current state of affairs and politics and all the economics and all the things surrounding us at the moment are. And this is 1 Samuel chapter 8. That people really demanded to have a king to judge us like all the nations. Yeah, so they didn't want to be the chosen one. They didn't want to be something special. They didn't want to have salvation. They only wanted to be ruled like all the other nations. So that means, in my humble opinion, they want to live like all the other nations. They don't want to have the commandments. They want to get rid of the commandments. They want to have the Antichrist ruling over them. They want to have a king, and we know that there is none who is perfect in this world, no human being or no man in that regard. So absolutely that, in my humble opinion, it says that this is the root of all the politics today. It's 1 Samuel 8. So even the chosen one, Israel, they demanded to be ruled like all the nations. Yeah, like all the nations means all the nations, all the other nations. So there is not one nation anymore, which is under the guidance, under the rule of God, because they were the chosen one. Even they said, no, we prefer to be ruled under a king or by a king with worldly rules. So you see that you got the apostate people here. Yeah, you got it right from the start. This is the beginning of Sodom and Gomorrah once again. And not only that, this is just that they said that like all the nations, like the United Nations, all the nations, yeah, all the nations are combined in the United Nations. And that means that, in my humble opinion, the United Nations is the same outcome as it was in the Old Testament times, that people want to be ruled among and with from laws of the people, but not the laws of God. So that means that United Nations exclude God. Also, they use the same laurels here as SPQR, as we have realized last time, like the Roman Senate. So that this is the Roman Empire once again under the disguise of the United Nations. Yeah, no, these are 33 sectors here, and it's always a reminiscence to the Freemasons, but that is not the origin. You see, the origin is that people are in the Antichrist spirit. Everybody who does not obey the orders of God is in the Antichrist spirit. And once again, it has been verified here that even when the Lord will not hear them in that day, so when they have trouble, the people refuse to obey the voice of Samuel. And we know that Samuel is just proclaiming the things, the orders of God. And they said, so the people said that, nay, but we will have a king over us. So that it has been decided. You cannot argue with them, you cannot debate, but it is just clear right from the start that it is just for the people to be ruled by other people. Yeah, so that means that people really prefer to be ruled from fallible laws by men instead of infallible laws, commandments of God. So that they said that we do not want to follow God, we just want to follow man. We want to follow our images and idols, we want to have kings. And of course, this is a very big reference to the Revelation 17 and 18, when it is with the kings of the earth that the woman made fornication with and been drunken with the wine of her fornication. That's it. Yeah, so that is the root of all the mess when it comes down to politics. It is excluding God. You can name every government on this nation, even if it would be a monarchy that will be ruled by a worldly king, if it is a so-called democracy, if it is a so-called republic, what else? Yeah, if there are tribes, it is just the outcome is the same. It is Antichrist. It is an Antichrist rulership and it is Antichrist government. And so therefore you won't find any Christian things in it. Compare that to Germany, to United States, to wherever country you would like to live in. It is always just the same, in my humble opinion. So that is the...
Yeah, you know, if we go back to that verse, Michael, what was it, verse 19?
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of God through the Spirit of God was speaking through Samuel.
Yep.
That's really what this means. And they said, nay, but we will have a king over us.
There is a saying in Germany which says that the prophet isn't worth anything in its own country.
Yes, right. So we're speaking of the nation of Israel here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one could almost say there was a conspiracy between what were these people again? Go back, Michael, to the first few verses. Yeah. Okay, after the sons were perverted, All the elders of Israel gathered themselves together. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came to Samuel unto Ramah, which is high ground, if I'm not mistaken. Ramah is high ground. That's why all of the high ground in the metropolitan areas of this earth are ruled over by the Roman papacy today.
Mm-hmm.
You see all these high grounds where all these churches and high places are, they're all part of the Roman structure. So it's interesting to me. Yeah, I think it was Ramah. Oh, this is actually a location,
Mm-hmm.
but it means high ground. That's the meaning of Ramah, as far as I remember.
Yeah, could very much be, but I did not evaluate that content. I don't know. So I really cannot back it up at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But we can use the ESOT software.
Yes, we can.
The name of 4 places in Palestine, Ramah. The same as 7413 Ramah. So it's just been mentioned as a place here. H7413. High place. There you got your high place. A place of illicit worship.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Kudos to Brett.
Seed of idolatry, it says right there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Feminine active principle of age 7 through 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Brett is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, I remember finding this a while back when I was studying it, and just like, wow, that's interesting. So the elders of Israel gathered themselves together. They decided, we're going to get kings. We're no longer going to obey the voice of God. And we want our nation to be ruled over us with a king, just like all the nations. So there we go. Yeah. Yeah, that in of itself is a conspiracy, Michael.
Yeah, and the Lord said, they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. I think that is the essence.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so the essence is that God said to Samuel, well, don't be sad because it is not about you, it is about me. They don't want to follow me anymore. And if you don't want to follow God anymore, yeah, whom do you follow? People who are not in the Christ spirit, people who don't want to obey, people want to set up their own rules. And that's also, if you like to see it that way, that is the root also of this new age movement or movement to satisfy yourself, to have pleasures and to do what thou wilt. Yeah, so this is everything excluding God, so the God of the Bible, actually. Yeah, this is very interesting, especially when you think about the fact that in Germany, the biggest party, or the biggest party for the entire last 50 years, is called the Christian Democratic Union, and there is nothing Christian to it. Actually, it was a Roman Catholic party, but people don't get the difference, because if they don't study the things, they really misjudge and been misleading into believing that Roman Catholicism means Christianity. That's a common thing, which people don't get right. Yeah, so God says, okay, they don't obey me anymore, so I don't need to be their king anymore, because they have decided already and said, okay, no, we don't want to follow the orders and commands of God. We want to follow man, and we want to have yeah, in worship images and idols, so to speak, because you see that people are very much fallen for, oh, this is a president, this is a king. Yeah, these so-called yellow press is full of images of kings and leaders and actors and all these very important persons, VIP. If you are a VIP in a satanic world, that means you are a very unimportant person, I think, because it's of course the other way around. So everybody who's been sold as an idol today is not an idol, because we do not want to, we shall not worship any idol. But who's reading the Bible anyway? So when it comes down to conspiracies, actually, you find a lot of them in the Bible, especially also with the word conspiracy mentioned here. Yeah, therefore I thought it would be very easy to, instead of copying until the cows come home, just to insert the search string and to type in conspiracy, because you see, yay, 10 times you got conspiracy in the one-to-one sense. Conspiracy, Jeremiah, 2 Kings, Acts, 2 Samuel, 2 Chronicles, Ezekiel, and 2 Kings. So this is about the New Testament. This is about the Old Testament here, conspiracy. But there is also much more to it. Interesting enough, also, before I forget it, is conspiracy is also been mentioned in the context of kings. Yeah, here you see that is written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Here it is a conspiracy found among the men of Judah. Yeah. In 2 Kings, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem. Conspiracy, and conspiracy. And also this is a relation here to the king of Egypt and the king of Assyria and the king of Assyria, etc., etc. So this conspiracy has very much to do with politics, or with rulers, actually. But that's not the end of it. That's not the end of it by far. You see, these are 10 instances I mentioned here. And when I take 2 Kings 17:4 for example, it speaks of kings. And if I compare that to Revelation 17, it also speaks of kings. In that very verse, 17:2. Would you care to read it?
Sure. Should I just read verse 2 or the whole thing?
No, I think it is the second verse which is spot on.
With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
Yeah, because it is about, maybe we have to read it until verse 5, that you see what is the relationship between the kings of the earth and the mystery religion. Could you read, so therefore, verse 3, 4, and 5?
Oh, sure. Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wasn't paying attention there. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
Now we see that these are the kings of the earth who has committed fornication, which was clear from the beginning, because they didn't want to follow the commandments of God in 1 Samuel 8. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it is here in total relation, the kings of the earth are in total relation to the great whore that sitteth above many waters. So the great whore, we know that the whore is an apostate church. And this apostate church has been mentioned as Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So we can suppose that the political conspiracies have something to do with, first of all, not obeying the commandments of God, second, being in the Antichrist spirit, third of all, being related to the mother of harlots, to Babylon the Great. So if there are conspiracies, they must be, through definition, must be in the Antichrist spirit, because in the Christ spirit you won't have any conspiration. You just your voice is yea, yea, or nay, nay, but you don't do anything in secret, and also you don't murder anybody. And that's what most conspiracies are about. It's about regime change, murder, treason, or something else which is totally unbiblical. So that is very interesting here that in Revelation 17:2 the kings of the earth are being together mentioned with the horror of Babylon, or Mystery Babylon the Great. You see where it all comes down from. If you are a little bit more studied in the Bible, you know that Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, is actually the whore of Babylon, is actually the Roman Catholic Church. So that means that the kings of the earth are together mentioned here with the apostate church. Verse 18, yeah, you see the kings of the earth have been mentioned once again. Would you like to read it?
Sure, yes. Revelation 17, verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
Yeah, so the woman is a great city who reigns over the kings of the earth. So that's spot on. We know that the kings and the mother of abominations and the great city is reigning over the kings of the earth. So there is one hierarchy above the kings of the earth. So the kings of the earth are not the ones who are ruling, because the Bible explicitly tells reigneth. So there is a supreme above the king. And usually, if you think about the Roman Empire, once again, it's the emperor. It's the emperor who sets in king or is canceling kings. Yeah, but it's the emperor. For example, the Holy Roman Emperor. That is the one who is supreme above the kings. And in Revelation 18, it's been said here that it is Babylon. Once again, it's a confirmation of 17 is fallen, fallen, and the habitation of devils. So that apostate church, sorry if I would not like to exclude Brett, but Babylon has been depicted here as a habitation of devils. So the apostate church is the habitation of devils. Yeah, and once again, maybe it's been more suitable if my American friend reads the verses 2, 3, and 4. I think that is the most interesting ones about chapter 18.
Yes, and that reads verse 2, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues.
Yeah, that's a very strong book or chapter, Revelation 18. And once again, Babylon, so the apostate church, the mother of harlots, or the whore of Babylon, what you prefer, became the habitation of devils, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird, of every foul spirit. Yeah, you see that this is spiritual things. So habitation of devils does not mean people. Habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit means that either there are pure spirits or people who are possessed with evil or foul spirits. And once again, every time you come across the term of the king of an earth, then it has been in a negative content. Yeah, once again, the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Yeah, it's once again the kings of the earth. It's always negative when the term kings of the earth appears. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich. Yeah, at the moment they are really waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And of course, God is commanding people to come out of their city, of the apostate city, apostate church. Yeah, and this is the kings of the earth once again. So the kings of the earth are the people who are the rulers, who have been elected by the average people, who are the rulers and setting up Antichrist laws, because it cannot be God laws, because in 1 Samuel 8 they already have rejected God. And once again, the kings of the earth have been mentioned here with fornication. So fornication means that it's a spiritual foul. Yeah, they're absolutely foul. They do not. You see that you don't have to judge them by their speeches. You don't have to judge them by the books. You have to judge them by the fruits. And in the current situation out there, I think it is very easy to judge people or leaders by the fruits. Yeah. So you see that we can go on and on and on, but the problem is that the kings of the earth are always negative. So every king is somebody depicted as negative. So 17. So question, who are the kings of the world? Because it speaks of king, but maybe you live in a country where there is no king. For example, United States of America, I think there is no king. I'm not sure. Was there?
Correct. It is not a monarchy.
I remember correctly, they fled out of a monarchy like the Great Britain to the United States, so the new so-called New World, to escape these apostate governments and heresies and these inquisitions of the Roman Catholic Church. And so the United States of America never encountered to have any monarchy ruler, any king or queen or princess or anything in that regard. Any nobility also. There is no nobility, if I remember correctly, which has been created out of the United States of America.
Oh, it's only secret nobility.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to know. It's an esoteric thing versus exoteric. I mean, this is old. This is ancient. It's been around for such a long period of time. And the hierarchy, all they want to do is make it as hard as possible for people to really make up their minds and decide what they want to believe about this. So how do they do it? Secret societies, Michael. That's the conclusion I come to.
Yeah. But the question remains, who are the kings of the world? If there is no king in your country. Of course, in my humble opinion, it has to be the first among equals or the supreme leader. It is not Leonardo DiCaprio who says, I'm the king of the world, and it's also not Charlie Chaplin who portrayed here Adolf Hitler, the Austrian dictator ruling in Germany for about 12 years. No. He wasn't German, but you see that we are all created by God. So I'm not judging somebody by its nation, color, skin, race, sex, or what else. The thing is, though, that this persiflage or this homage, the great dictator, its title says that somebody wants to rule the world. You see that what other expression, what other outcome could be if somebody holds the so-called globe Earth in his hands, huh? And with a reminiscence of some ancient leader here. Especially when you got so-called sun rays in the background. Yeah, this is very interesting. It's Charles Chaplin. Yeah, not by coincidence, you got an eagle here. And he's been dressed as an army general or something like this. Yeah, he wants to be king of the world. That's his statement, his quote in that movie from 1941-42. Somewhere around that. Yeah, and Charlie Chaplin also has some very interesting ties. He's been raised in the United Kingdom, actually. Died in 1977. And in his junior life, he was thrown away when his alcoholic father abandoned the family, and his mother suffered of mental illness, and that she had to stay in mental asylums. Yeah, and that was his school. It was the Jesuit-run Roman Catholic school of Saint Francis Xavier in Salisbury Street. Yeah, so he also was Jesuitically educated. That's the church today. Yeah, he spent a few weeks, he spent in Liverpool as SFX. In later life, the entertainer would say that of all the schools he attended during his complex and demanding early life, he never felt more welcomed or cared for than he did during the few weeks he spent in Liverpool at SFX. Well, what do you expect from somebody who has no foundation because his father left the family and his mother went to a mental asylum? Yeah, it's a very common thing among so-called entertainers that they're coming out of a desolate family. Yeah, this is to the credit of his fellow pupils and the priests and staff of the school, and to the people of Liverpool particular because the boy was Jewish. Okay, so then you put a Jew out in front, and usually people blame the Jews, but actually it had nothing to do with it. It's just a thing that Mr. Chaplin has also had the misadventure or bad luck that he was raised into that kind of family. But we know that there are no coincidences. Therefore, it is very interesting that he was Jesuitically trained. Also, he was knighted by the Queen in 1975, but then he died in 1977 at the age of 88. Yeah, he was one of the greatest entertainers of all time. Yeah, so once again, who are the kings of the world? Yeah, when James Bond, for example, they're fooling us with the title "The World Is Not Enough." So what kind of world? Yeah, what kind of world is not enough? Is this world not enough? Are there any other worlds, or what is it? Because this guy is just a depiction of a Secret Service agent who is supposed to have the license to kill. Who's granting the license to kill when in the Bible it is forbidden to kill? So that means, in my own opinion, that the license can only be granted by someone who is the supreme officer or commander in the Antichrist spirit and the satanic leadership. So this is 007, and I know that there is a tale or fairy tale that comes from the binoculars of Dr. John Dee, that he wrote, undersigned everything with 007 or so, but it has not been verified yet. Interesting enough, in that very movie, The World Is Not Enough, there is a reminiscence about a quote on the movie At Her Majesty's Secret Service out of the 1960s, and Mr. Bond realizes that there is a motto of his family called Orbis non sufficit, which is Latin for the world is not enough. Yeah, so the original quote is non sufficit orbis and was the quote of the King Philippe II of Spain. Yeah? So the creator of James Bond, called the Secret Service agent Ian Fleming, he was using the historical motto of the baronets out of the family bond of Peckham. And this is very interesting because Philip II was a Spanish monarch from the dynasty of the Habsburger, which were the rulers or the ruling nobility in the Holy Roman Empire of German nations. Yeah, you see that these are very interesting ties, and I think that also these were the people having conspiracies for having ties to the secret treaty of Vienna. Yeah, you see that not by coincidence. It's the case of the Austrians, Casa de Austria. Yeah, so this is an Austrian nobility. These are from Austrian nobility, and the Philip was reigning from 50-55. All the countries under the Spanish crown, like Spain, Netherlands, Neapel, Sardinia, Sicily, Milan, and also the Spanish colonies, and also from 50-80 then Portugal. Yeah, it's very interesting that we see actually that it has been in the time when there was a Council of Trent. Yeah, this is among the time when there was the Council of Trent.
Yeah.
And there was the motto of the Spanish king. We know that the Spanish monarchy has very close ties to the papacy and was the world power in that day, the Spain and Portugal in the 16th century. So this is during the time of the Council of Trent. So who are the kings of the world? They must not wear a crown. These were the supreme beings or the supreme leaders of any country. These are the G20, Germany 2017 in Hamburg. You see the old, nowadays not in power anymore, Angela Merkel, the chancellor. So not the king of Germany, because it's not nobility, it's not a monarchy, the chancellor of Germany. You see here Vladimir Putin, which is the president, not the king of Russia. You see here Erdogan, the Turkish premier minister, not the king of Turkey, but nevertheless, I think that you could count them as kings because these are officially, for the average people, you see these are the kings of their respective countries. And this is the one from China, and I'm sorry that I cannot get used to his name. Yeah, but yeah, and this guy, this fellow here, you also know this is Donald Trumpius. Yeah, and this is Emmanuel Macron. Yeah, so these are the people who have been setting up as so-called leaders of any country, and people fall for that because many people, the majority of people actually think that these people are ruling the world. Yeah, just the front actors on the politics. But for the average people, these are the kings of the world. But they are not. They are just playing a game because there are many, many more influential people behind them pulling the strings. So these are like marionettes. Yeah, these are like I don't know how to say that. These are just paid actors, in my humble opinion, and there are much more prominent and powerful people behind it, think tanks behind it. For example, Council on Foreign Relations, because you see that these people have to fight for their rulership every period of time, so 4 or 5 years, and then they have to be in battle again for the votes, so-called votes of the people. So these are not supreme beings by birth. These are not also supreme beings by elite or by knowledge or what else. So they have to fight to get votes. So how powerful are they when they have to fight for their position? So who are really the kings of the world? I have experienced another thing, another idea when I came across that German book of Bernhard Kegel called Die Herrscher der Welt, wie Mikroben unser Leben bestimmen. So these are the rulers of the world, how microbes determine our life. Because nowadays you see that this is this construction that people are afraid of, and they give power to that thing. Yeah? So who are the rulers of the world? People you do not see. People sometimes who are really kings or queens, for example, the Queen Elizabeth II, who is the ruler officially. So if you don't know that already, or if you don't care, or just maybe it escaped you, but she's the Queen of the United Kingdom and 14 other Commonwealth realms. But if you look upon the list of the most influential people, or the list of the most powerful people, or the list of the richest people of the world, usually she's not listed upon them because nobody knows actually how powerful or how much money she got into her account. People really think that Elon Musk is the most richest man on earth, and I highly doubt that.
So yeah, Michael, we got the kings of the earth following the same pattern since a long time ago, ancient times, and yeah, it's not changed. It's remained the same. But what can we expect? I mean, this is the world we live in, isn't it, Michael?
Mm-hmm. It is.
It's the world we live in, and I don't think that it's very easy for the people to really come to terms with, biblical truth behind it, because they've already found themselves at odds with it and would rather follow the Pope, really, and his laws and the traditions of men and all of these things, because it's much easier, actually. It's easier because this whole system that actually preys upon the innocence of men, actually, you know, it is contrary to what God had set up and had explained in the Bible. So I guess it makes sense, Michael. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, we will soon approach the American history, and as this entire series it's based on American history, I think it is very interesting. I hope, at least for the American public, or to people who are actually interested in American history, the other way around. Because I don't want to go into the average things. I don't want to go into worldly things that much. I want to go into the religious things which really been hidden under the radar, because that usually newspaper, media, etc. won't talk about it, because the majority of people are still in the Antichrist spirit, so they don't care, so it doesn't sell. Yeah, it's also the only thing that is selling is, oh, there is a crowned king, there is a princess who got a baby. Yeah, this is the richest man in the world. These are living in that castle, you see, but the religious ties among them, and all the conspiracies among them, and all the biblical relations among them, I think that's what could set these sessions apart from every other documentary, because usually that we are running so small channels there that we can afford to have a program for a special audience, I think. And so maybe this is that we can all combine the dots a little bit better. Also, what's about the current situation, that's also could be kind of helpful, I think. So thank you very much, Brad, for accompanying me, and see you next time, and God bless and Maranatha.